Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's a great honor and a great privilege, as always, to share this space.
The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I will guarantee a house in paradise for the one that gives up arguing, even if she believes she's right, even if he believes he's right, because the Prophet knows this kind of quarreling is an absolutely fruitless pursuit. The only thing that will come out of it most of the time, mutual enmity between the two disputants. Nobody's going to say, you know what? I am a dog. I'm glad you told me that. That usually doesn't happen. But Shafi'i was saying, I want to hear the truth and then have the honor of saying, you know what? You're right. You're right. I accept that.
No.
You're right. Now here, Imam Maulud approaches this malady, this disease of the heart from a different angle. He's thinking about a person that is scared of doing what's right because they don't want to be blamed by people. They don't want to be criticized. So they're afraid to do what is right. So it's like, and these are real stories that I've heard. One of my friends, and I don't say this ridiculing him or belittling him. I say this empathizing with him and praying for him. He said that, he worked in finance, and sometimes major deals would get done and they would celebrate with wine. And he was so afraid of telling his colleagues that he did not drink, that he would ingest the wine, hold it in his mouth for 30, 45 seconds, and then go to the bathroom and spit it out. Because he was afraid to say, I don't drink. That's what Imam Maulud is talking about. What are you afraid of? Now, what's interesting about that is I said, if you told some of the members of your team, I'm a recovering alcoholic, all of them would say, oh my God, maybe not subhanAllah, but we want to celebrate, but we'll do it with Welch's sparkling grape today, just in the interest of his sobriety. But if you say for the sake of God, because of my beliefs, I don't drink. What do you think? What do you fear will happen to you? Do you have any personal anecdotes or situations where doing what was right, you feared that maybe it would subject you to some kind of blame? Now, if you don't have anything that you want to share, that's cool. Can you imagine a scenario, perhaps?
It's interesting. Something comes to mind from it because I think about being in a public restroom and it's time to make wudu.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times growing up, I used to wipe over the sock. And then I'm just coming to understand that's not really the right way to do it. I ain't right. And it's funny because alhamdulillah, somewhere as of late, I don't care.
Right, yeah.
So
this is my foot in the sink.
Right.
Yep.
If your foot is in the sink.
Yep.
And it's interesting though, because it's different for people. They see it. And I was thinking one time, I said, man, you'll have a guy, and forgive me, I don't mean to be unnecessarily crude. I do little comedy sometimes. This is actually a joke I had thought about. I said, you'll have a guy coming out of the stall that's not even gonna wash his hands. And he's gonna look down at my foot in the sink. I'm gonna subject myself to what you think, and you good to go.
Good to go.
So it make you think, like, what is my frame of reference here? You know what I mean? Because absolutely. I'm not gonna have right wudu. I'm trying to match whatever standard it is that y'all got going on, and I don't agree with it at all. So what I'm going on for?
What are we doing here?
So you savage. Because I got my foot is clean in your hands. You about to go shake people's hand, eat whatever it is you're gonna do. You know what I'm saying? What's my point of reference?
It's really something to think about, man. You know, funny story about that. Now, this issue of making wudu over cotton socks, it's a controversial issue. You know, the vast majority of the schools of fiqh maintain that if you're going to wipe over your footwear, it should be leather. It should come to the ankle. If it isn't leather, it should be a man-made material that's durable like leather. So most people exclude cotton socks from that, aside from people that adhere to the methodology of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, because there is this hadith, some weakness in it, that the Prophet made al-masah ala al-jawrabayn, that he wiped over the sock. So you will see some Muslims wiping over the sock. Now, practically, if you are praying behind someone and you know that they wipe over the sock, make the prayer. And then if you're concerned about that, remake the prayer. It'll be 7 or 6 more minutes. And you can remake the prayer just using one ayah of Surah Al-Ikhlas. Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu Akbar. Right? If you're in a rush or you need to go, because the unity of the Muslim community is more important than this one ruling. For you to make a scene and say, the Imam doesn't have wudu. He didn't wipe his feet. He didn't wipe his feet. I saw him. He wiped over his sock. It's not worth that.
Cause more problems.
That is not a nahyu an al-munkar. That is not prohibiting evil. This is creating tension, creating disunity, creating discord. It's better just to make the prayer and then just remake the prayer. It's no problem, right? But one of my friends, a white American convert to Islam, was teaching his father, who isn't Muslim, about Islam, and he was teaching him about wudu and about wiping over the wiping the foot. And so his father, who is a big time business guy, was doing business with some people from Saudi. And he went into the bathroom and he saw the Saudi fella wiping over his sock. And he said that the Saudi fella looked like he was going to be worried that, like, what, this guy might not know what I'm doing. And my friend said his dad said to him, you know, you really need to take your sock off. My son told me you're really supposed to take your sock off. You know what I'm saying? But your point, though, we're so concerned about what someone's going to say about me, how someone will view me. You know, my thing with making wudu in public, I didn't want somebody to think that I was homeless or indigent or using the public stall like to especially in places where there's lots of vagrancy.
Taking a bird bath.
Like San Francisco. You know, I was just in San Francisco about a month ago. Now, I was with Muhammad Saifullah, and I'm thinking that there was the time of Asr was going out. And I'm thinking that San Francisco was something like Chicago. Because now we're giving like practical tips. Whenever I need to pray and I'm out and about, I'm shopping, I'm with the family, hotels. That's my joint. My thing is walk into the hotel with confidence like you're staying there. Walk into the common bathroom, make wudu, go into one of the ballrooms. I've prayed in some of the ballrooms of the nicest hotels in Chicago. I just walk in, 4 Seasons, go straight in the ballroom, just pray. Nobody ever bothers me, right? Waldorf Astoria, walk straight in, just pray. Nobody ever bothers me. He was like, where can we pray? I said, man, we'll just walk into a hotel, make wudu and pray. But San Francisco is a city that's known for vagrancy. So everything is locked, right? Everything is locked, right? And so I go to the front desk. I need to use the bathroom. She said, are you a resident? I said, well, can we talk about that after I use the bathroom? You gotta have some game or you're not gonna be able to take care of yourself. I said, man, you're being very pushy for a concierge. Can I use the bathroom first? Goodness. She's like, I'm sorry, right? So I went, everything was locked. I'm like, dang. So I'm in there, I just got my tank top on. Somebody walked in and looked, and they almost looked like, not a look of disgust, but like a look of like, commiseration, like, oh. And that day, I happened to be wearing jeans and a fatigue jacket, a BDU. It all went with the seed. And I said to myself, just keep making wudu. But I couldn't contain myself. I looked and said, no, I'm Muslim. I'm just preparing to pray. I'm not, even though speaking during wudu is makruh. Right. But I looked and I said, I'm not washing up. I'm Muslim. I'm just, you know what I'm saying? It's not what you think. And they were like, okay.
Sure, it's not.
But why are we so concerned in the first place? Imam Maulud says, displeasure with blame is a well-known disease of the heart. Concern with people's opinions and desiring their praise and displeasure at their criticisms. When I think about that, I think about the difference between being concerned with what people I care about think about me and being concerned with reputation. All of us, there is no way that a person can be validated except through their support group. Nobody just knows that they are worthy or beautiful or intelligent or thoughtful. People tell you that, especially in your formative years. People tell you you are handsome or you are beautiful. People tell you you are intelligent or you are thoughtful, you are creative. And I think all of us need that. All of us need that. Even, one of my favorite stories from the Seerah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was, two stories, both of them connected. And I love the way they intersect. One, there was a woman, I believe her name was Halima. She came to the Prophet ﷺ as he was sitting with some of the Sahaba, right? Radiyallahu anha wa radiyallahu anhum. May God be pleased with her and be pleased with them.
Ameen.
And she just straight up asked the Messenger of Allah, what about women? And the Prophet was taken aback by the question. Excuse me? The men, they have access to you. The men are studying with you. The men are traveling with you. The women of this community have questions that we need answered, and we want to study with you, right? And in one riwayah, the Prophet ﷺ asked Sayyidina Umar, he said, what do you think about this? Like, this was something, and Sayyidina Umar said, Wallahi, I didn't even know a woman could do that. Which, you gotta think about this, man. This is not a statement of misogyny. This is a statement of familiarity. He was from Bani Abd al-Shams, and he was a Meccan man. And the women of Mecca were very focused on the domestic sphere of life. And women of Mecca might have thought addressing a tribal leader, let alone a prophet of God, so assertively would be considered impudent or rude, or like, you just don't do that, right? That's not a woman's place to do that, right? So Sayyidina Umar said, Wallahi, I didn't even know a woman could speak like this, because all of the commentators say when she spoke to the Prophet ﷺ, she was very eloquent. She was clearly very intelligent, and she was what we call intrepid. She was very bold. She wasn't like, right? And she was an Ansari woman. She was a woman from Medina. And the Prophet ﷺ, in this riwayah, wallahi, it says, he looked at Sayyidina Umar and he said, wallahi, this is normal. This is normal. Hada tabi'i, hada shay tabi'i. This is normal. It's not unusual for a woman to be assertive. It's unusual for our women to be assertive, because Meccan women were not like that. So when you hear the story of the woman asking about how she should bathe after having erotic dreams, say that Aisha said that she was trembling, like, I can't believe a woman would talk like this. She's from Mecca. Women don't, that's inappropriate. But the Ansari women, they were a different kind of women, right? And the Prophet said, blessed are the women of the Ansar because they didn't allow ihtisham. This is an authentic hadith. They didn't allow ihtisham, which in Arabic is excessive shyness, to prevent them from learning their religion. And he said that to Aisha, saying, some of you muhajirun women, you should mimic them. These women are bold. They'll ask questions publicly and they feel no shame about that, right? And the Prophet looked at her and he said, you're right. Maybe this was an oversight of mine. It speaks exactly to what we're talking about today. He didn't say, who are you to talk to me? Whatever I'm doing in the community is what God has ordained for me to do in the community. Astaghfirullah, stay in your place. And he said, you're right. You're right. Let's put a majlis together with me and just the women of the Sahaba. And they would study every Monday. A lot of people don't know this. They had a Jalsatul Ithnain, the Prophet ﷺ, and the women, the Sahabiyat, may God be pleased with them, the women of the Sahaba, that the Prophet would give them focused attention, just answering their questions. And men were not allowed to attend those gatherings. And once, the second story, they were having one such gathering. And Sayyidina Umar just saw the Prophet ﷺ from a distance and just walked up and approached the gathering. And as soon as he was there in the majlis, in the sitting, all of the women just started running, like, right? And Sayyidina Umar was like, Ma bikun yani, what's with this? And they said, man, we're afraid of you. And he said, yeah, a'da'i anfusikunna. You're afraid of me, but you can sit in the majesty that is the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. And mind you, Umar believes that being intimidating is something praiseworthy. So he's like, if you're going to be intimidated by somebody, it should be the Prophet ﷺ. He's more worthy of being feared than I am. And they said, but the Prophet is gentle, and approachable and easygoing in his manner. You, on the other hand, we find you very frightening. And you have to understand, man, Sayyidina Umar, kana min ashab as-sudus. He was 6 cubits tall. So that means maybe 6'8", 6'9". Sayyidina Umar was huge, right? People said that his presence was so imposing that when he walked and he approached a gathering, you thought he was mounted on a horse. And they said that his manner had some, what we call in Arabic, jafwa. There was some roughness in his manner. Some people, their manner is just very direct. Right. I think the English word is abrasive. So, Umar was a little bit abrasive. It's like the man that came to him when he was the Khalifa and said, I have some doubts in my mind about Allah. And they said, Sayyidina Umar was leaning on a cane. And he hit the man in the head with the cane. And he said, how are your doubts now? And the man said, they're all gone now. His manner was abrasive like that. Right? There was somebody reciting the Quran in a way that he was unfamiliar with. He grabbed them by the collar and dragged them to the Prophet ﷺ. This man is reciting the book of Allah incorrectly. Prophet Umar, I taught him to recite like that. What are you doing? Oh, I'm sorry. Astaghfirullah. His manner was like that. No. So when they said this, Umar looked at the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet was laughing. Like laughing at what they said. And Umar was in disbelief. And the Prophet said, Umar, it's true, man. It's true. You are like that. You are cut from that cloth. You're a person like that. Now, what some commentators say, they say that when we read this hadith, we read it with a certain lightness, and there's a certain humorous kind of interpretation we give to it. No. But for Umar to learn that he was different in some fundamental ways than the Prophet ﷺ, they said that might have broken his heart, man. No. To know that it may be some ways that I cannot change. I can't be like you.
No.
The prophet looked at him sad over what he said when he said, you are like that. Like, we are different. You're not like me. He said, but Omar, don't worry about it. It's okay. You don't go one way, except that Shaitan takes another way. Right? And so in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ was saying, you know what? We are different in some fundamental ways. But let me tell you something good about how you are. That bold, intrepid, fearless, everything that you are, you frighten Satan by the way that you are. And they say that this hadith was a lesson in how to validate the people close to us, even when they're different than us, right? So we need that. The Prophet knew how to give that to people, right? Reputation, as Dr. Will Caldwell explained a few weeks ago, this is caring about what people I don't even know think about me. Not my mother, not my wife, not my children, not my neighbors, not my colleagues, my coworkers, my classmates, but somebody in cyberspace that I might not ever encounter. I just want them to know, Ubaydullah, he a G. Straight like that. No cut on it, it's raw. Why are we so concerned with that?
Well, if they gonna know anything, you'd rather be good, right?
But why are we so concerned with what they know? Who are they? Why are they important? Right? One thing that, we have to struggle to remember is that in our humanity, we are all fundamentally the same. So the person that I'm worried about viewing me as being homeless or vagrant or Muslim or a know-it-all or a goody two-shoes or whatever prevents me from wanting to do what's right and say what's true. On Yom Qiyamah, that person is going to be naked and trembling and afraid and awaiting judgment just like me. So why am I so concerned with them? La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah.
I think the other piece about it's funny, like that the making wudu in the bathroom is such a, it's a lot of different elements to look at it from this whole thing of blame is recognizing our place in representing like Allah and representing the Prophet ﷺ, because it would be inappropriate to kind of submit to another way with the thought that that way is better, knowing that it's not even a real point of reference. It'd be different if, one person thought wiping over the sock was okay and the other person, and you were at least dealing with some kind of frame of reference and went back to
the Quran,
to Allah, right, to the Quran and the Sunnah, but to shy away from something that doesn't even have a real bearing other than what has become just normal for society. It's like you really, I don't know, man, like you missing the mark. You know what I'm saying?
One of the things that I've had to work on is just getting comfortable with being uncomfortable sometimes. Like knowing that sometimes saying what's right is going to make things uncomfortable and just not avoiding that, but leaning into that. I remember one day, man, and she probably wouldn't mind me saying this, right? It was my wife's birthday. And I just wanted to get her something nice. So we were downtown on Michigan Avenue and we walked past the Gucci store. And I said, just go ahead and pick something, whatever you want. I was feeling good that day. I was feeling good that day. And she had picked up a pair of shoes that, appeared to strike her fancy that day. She didn't get them though. Listen to this. And I'm not saying this to big up my wife. My wife noticed that all of the sales representatives were white. but the security personnel was Black. And she started shaking her head. She said, I'm looking at her like, because sometimes when I'm looking at something I really like, I shake my head like, that's hard. Yeah, that's tough. But I don't know her to do that. So she said, so we good enough to guard this stuff, but we ain't good enough to sell it. I said, hey, what are you talking about, baby? You don't notice? No, what? All of the sales representatives are white, but the security is Black. I'm gonna say something to them about this. I said, man, you ain't got to do that, man. I said, if you want to leave the store, let's just leave the store, man. You ain't got to do that. She said, no. She said, I noticed that everybody working on the sales floor is white, but the security staff is Black. In a city as diverse as Chicago, how do you explain that? And the woman just started stammering, like, we do have Black people that are employed here in sales. None of them are working today, but if you want, I could call one, or so, it was, she was like, no, you don't have to do that. I just, I'm not even gonna buy anything. I just want you to know, when I see something like this, it disturbs me. Mm-hmm. She walked out of the store. I walked out behind her like, I'm with her. I'm with her. And we just got back on the street, and I said, man, why did you have to do that? I had to do that. Right. And I remember feeling great respect for her and esteem for her willingness to make things uncomfortable, to say what she felt needed to be said. Just sometimes, Imam Ghazali, he said in his Ihya, if you want to train the nafs with regard to your tongue, this would be hard to do. But he said it's simple. When you want to speak, be quiet. And when you want to be quiet, speak. He said, that's all. He said, that's a shortcut to training the nafs with regard to the tongue. When you got something, you just, I gotta say this, be quiet. And when you like, this needs to be said, but I'm scared to say it, speak. You do that, you will have mastered the tongue. Right? Subhanallah. Right? So that willingness that if I do what's right, it could make things a little uncomfortable, but hey, sometimes things have to get a little uncomfortable.
Right, it's wait for it to be right now.
Yeah, Bismillah, Bismillah. He continues, concern with people's opinions and desiring their praise and displeasure at their criticisms are a barrier from achieving the station of excellence in worship. Overcoming that barrier is through the realization that there is no benefit or harm unless it comes from God, the possessor of all dominion. Exalted and majestic is he. That the way that you break that tendency to perform for people is through recognizing that all benefit and all harm come from Allah. No. That there's nothing that anyone can offer you that God has not already written for you. And there's no way that anybody can harm you that God has not already written for you. No. The Prophet ﷺ was with Ibn Abbas, and Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma was a young man. And he said, now, when the Prophet was getting, older, advanced in his years. You have to kind of set the scene for this hadith, right? They're together. And the Prophet recognizes, we might not have many encounters like this left. So he says, Hal adullukum ala shay. Should I tell you something? That if I tell you this thing and you hold this, it'll work wonders for you in your relationship with Allah. Of course, Ibn Abbas said yes. He said, if all of creation, all of the human beings, all of the jinn, all of the angels got together and they worked in concert, all of their effort collectively to bring you some kind of benefit that God had not written for you, they couldn't do anything for you. And if all of them got together to harm you, to hurt you with something that God did not write for you, they wouldn't be able to hurt you at all. In the Bible, it says, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. That's what the Prophet ﷺ is saying. That if God has not written this to be something that harms you, it will not harm you. If that brother believed that his risk, now again, all of us, it's very easy to talk about, much harder to do, right? I have experiences where, I haven't taken stances that reinforce this idea. I go to the airport, man, I don't walk in and tell myself, Ubaydullah Evens? Will Evans. Passport says that you've lived in Yemen. The culture is interesting there. I was doing some sightseeing, and the people, the language, the culture, I enjoy it, really. It's kind of a bohemian part of me, I suppose. I was in Yemen studying the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But all harm, all benefit is from Allah. No. And so I'm not picking on my brother at all. I identify with my brother. But if I knew and he knew your risk and your security, they're given to you by Allah. If you told your colleagues, I love working here and I love being a member of the team, right? But I don't drink alcohol because I'm Muslim. No loss will be incurred from that. Not that Allah had not written for you anyway. No loss will be incurred from that. In fact, what we find is that when we respect ourselves, people tend to respect you, right? Especially
you
when you
stand for something.
Especially when you're good at what you do. See, whenever I think about taking a stance morally, I think about the connection of excellence to that. See, if I'm mediocre and then I have all of these conditions, this is too much for us, man. Maybe this isn't the right, maybe this isn't the right fit. But if I'm excellent, we'll put a musalla in the building if you need it. Right. Because you're excellent at what you do. Whatever you need, man, whatever you need, right? Because ultimately, above all else, they care about productivity. No. Right? Whatever you need, man, it's cool, man. Hey, look,
keep doing what you do.
If you keep producing like that, I'll go get you an imam. They say things like this, right? I think one place that, and I'm willing to go on record saying this, one place that you have to admire the LGBT community is their willingness to put it on the line for who they are. And whatever demotions, whatever opportunities are lost, whatever discrimination is faced, they're willing to do that for their sexual practice. And for the religion of God, we would be reticent or shy or reluctant. Now, would you look at that? Would you look at that?
But couldn't you say that's kind of how society has become? Is it that much putting it on the like? It's such an atmosphere.
No, it was a
support.
Time.
You know,
it was a time. It
right.
wasn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't always like this.
No.
But it's only like this now because of the pioneers of that lifestyle that were willing to put it on the line earlier. I mean, it was a time when you could lose your job or lose friendships or be accosted in the street for being identified as partisan to that lifestyle. Right. But people were willing to put it on the line, and look at what has happened. So as Muslims, it's like, how are we unwilling to put it on the line, man? Or at the very least, make a space for people that are willing to put it on the line. See, if you are unwilling to do it yourself, I feel like you owe it to those behind you to tell people, I don't have a problem drinking, but a lot of Muslims do. A lot of Muslims do. I don't want you to think this is the norm. A lot of Muslims do. Man, funny story, man. Funny story, man. I was living in Egypt, and there was Imam Hamza Abdul Malik, who's the Imam of the Midtown Mosque in Memphis, Tennessee, was working as a translator on the Sha'arawi project. There was a Sheikh al-Sha'arawi, Muhammad Mutawalli al-Sha'arawi, a great Egyptian scholar, contemporary scholar, a 20th century scholar, had a very well-respected book of tafsir that was being translated. And the translator was paying good money, right? So I just asked him, yo, man, I like writing. I like writing. I think I could translate. Could you get me on the project? And Hamza, being a brother, he said, sure, man, I'll see if they need any more translators. He called me the next day and said, they're going to send you a translation sample. Just translate that, send it back to them. If they like your work, you're on. No. Man, I put the Shakespeare on that joint, all right? I was in there playing John Coltrane as I was hitting the boy, just trying to hit that thing from every angle, you know what I mean? Poetic, you know what I mean? They read it, they liked it, they hired me. They were paying us $25 for every 300 words, which that's good money, man. I mean, that's like a page. That's like $25 a page. In Egypt, you can sit up and do 8-9 pages a day. I mean, that was, brother. We were in Egypt living. Hamza and I would get together, go have lunch on the Nile, but I would just, thank you, Habib. They would pay us in US dollars, cash money. We go to an office, the Momowin, the financier, would just open a drawer, pull out $100 bills, look at our, tabulate our word count. You walk out, go to the currency exchange. I used to send my mother money, huh? And she was in America and I was in Egypt. That's how sweet it was. Something happened where Hamza ended up losing the job. I think there was like a disagreement between him and the editor, or, she was an Egyptian woman, and he said something. I don't exactly remember what happened, but he ended up getting terminated. And you were still on. And I was still working there, right? But he's a mashallah. He's a gem of a human being. I'm like, I got my fingers crossed, but I'm like, you want me to quit too? I'm trying to be loyal, but I need the money. I'm trying to be loyal, but I said, man, they did you like what? Aki, man, you want me to quit too? He was like, nah. I said, okay, mashallah. So then one of our friends told us about a student exchange program between Al-Azhar University and the University of Michigan. And it was this program, mashallah, your sons, man. Mashallah. It was a student exchange program between Azhar and the University of Michigan. The Azharis needed like a intensive English immersion program before they went to U of M. Mm-hmm. And U of M was going to pay top dollar for people to teach. And Hamza and I were together when we were learning about the position, and I was thinking, I could do that too. make some more money. Right. But I said, you know what? Since you got me this job, you go ahead and take, there's only one position. No. I said, you go ahead and take that job. And so he went down and he got the job and he got hired. And there was a white American woman named Margaret Cohn. Shout out to Margaret if she's seeing this. And Hamza explained to me that when she was there, she was like coordinating things from the University of Michigan side. She tried to shake his hand, and he explained to her, "I'm sorry, I don't shake hands." And she was fine with that. She was like, "Oh, okay, I didn't mean to offend you." And they interviewed some of the students, and everything was going great. They were paying big money, actually. Then there was a woman from the Azhari side named Dr. Jihan.
Mm-hmm.
She was an older Egyptian woman, and she was a professor at Azhar. She was meeting different members of the team, and she attempted to shake his hand. Older Egyptian woman, she put her hand out to shake his hand, and he explained to her, "I'm sorry, I don't shake hands." And she said, "You don't shake. I'm old enough to be your grandmother. You don't shake hands." She pulled Margaret to the side, and she said, "These are not the kinds of Muslims you want in your program."
Oh, wow.
And then Margaret fired him on the spot.
SubhanAllah.
SubhanAllah. It was mind-blowing. He's telling me what happened. And I said, "That's horrible, huh?" I said, "If I went and applied for the job, would you be offended?" He said, "Nah, man, whatever, somebody's got to get the job."
Right.
Right. And I was still translating too.
You said I'll shake hands.
No. So what you hear in this story, I owe my whole life to Hamza. I owe my whole life to, I was still. So I went down there and I interviewed with Margaret. She hired me on the spot. She tried to shake my hand. I told her I don't shake hands. She said, "Oh no, I've already been told the Muslim men that don't shake hands, they're not the kind of Muslims I want in the program." And I said, that isn't true. I said, some Muslim men do and some Muslim women do and some don't. It's not anybody telling you that somebody's being modern or having misogynistic views or not hinges on whether they shake hands or not is misleading you. Isn't telling you the truth. There are people who shake hands that have misogynistic views, and there are people who don't, that respect and esteem femininity and womanhood.
No.
Well, that's silly. She said, "Well, I feel you, but when we meet with Dr. Jihan, you better shake her hand." And sure enough, Dr. Jihan came out, "Yebni, my son, salam alaikum." Wa alaikum salam.
Hamza back there.
And the thing about it, what was weird about it, she never tried to shake my hand again after that. It was a litmus test. Despicable. It was a litmus test. Just to see, okay, do you do this? Don't. She never, ever extended her hand to me, ever after that. I would see her on campus all the time. Salam alaikum, wa alaikum salam. She just wanted to just put this out. Let me see if he'll do this.
Is there something to the fact that you said she was like that much older, where she was beyond like marriageable age for you, or?
I mean, she was a woman in her 70s, and I even told Hamza, I said, she's sab'inat, yeah. It wasn't a big deal. He did shake the hand, but he said, it wasn't. It wasn't. But the fact that I did it shouldn't have led to me being terminated.
Of course not.
Was it? If I did, or if I didn't. Right? But my point is that even if we're taking a position of greater leniency, I think we owe it to those behind us to tell people, hey, look, not everybody does this, man. Some Muslim women don't shake hands. Some do. Some Muslim men don't shake hands. I drink alcohol, a lot of Muslims don't. So if you hire another Muslim, the expectation that they're going to sit at this table and drink with you, that might not be a reasonable expectation. No. It might be better to assume the opposite. This, to me, even if you are deeply flawed in your own practice of Islam, you have some integrity. No. I'm not going to represent my low standard as though my behavior is not the standard. No. And if you see someone different than me, they're not an extremist, right? I love when Muslim women who don't wear headscarves, proclaim their solidarity with Muslim women that do in professional spaces, and vice versa. Some Muslim women wear headscarves. Some Muslim women don't. Our community is a dynamic and a very vibrant community.
No.
I feel like there's integrity in that, man. You know?
Because it's a point of reference back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Because it's a point of reference back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I don't want to see any member of my community misunderstood, especially for their taqwa, especially for their piety. I don't want you to think, I remember, man, subhanAllah, this is when I knew we got a lot of work to do, man. I was boarding a plane, New York City. It's New York, man.
No.
JFK. And there was a large group of Jews, conservative Jews. They appeared to be Hasidic, getting onto the plane. They were sitting in economy like I was. And one of them sat down and there was a young woman who sat next to him. And I'm just watching this. And the rabbi, I didn't know he was a rabbi, but he was definitely a senior member of their group.
Mm-hmm.
He had just a slight agitation. Like there was something, he was agitated by something. A woman stood up in first class and said, Rabbi, please take my seat. Take my seat. And then she said to this, white American woman, you must understand, he's a holy person. This is maybe not comfortable for him sitting next to you. So I'll give him my seat in first class and I'll sit next to you. It's not offensive to you in any way. It's not that he looks down on you as a woman, but there's a spiritual state that he wants to remain in that this is uncomfortable for him. You must understand. And the white woman was just like, okay, whatever, you know what I'm saying? But the fact that she got up out of her seat in first class, and this was a woman, you wouldn't even know she was Jewish, and became his advocate for something that I might have even found a bit offensive. Like, this is a public plane. What did you expect? You can't choose who sits next to you. If you're that pious, maybe you should have chartered your own plane. You don't get to choose who, if you're that pious, right? But she got up from first class. He does not mean to offend you. It's not about that, right? This is a holy man, Rabbi. And he said, thank you, my daughter. He went up there and sat in first class and just, you know what I'm saying? Just went up there, and I was looking saying, subhanAllah. Muslims in the same scenario. No, he is a creep. You know what I'm saying? He is a creep. You're right to be offended. I don't like those guys either. You know what I'm saying? And it's just respect, even just respect for piety, man. SubhanAllah. How much time? 5 minutes. I want to finish the chapter. He said, furthermore, what is prohibited from this disease is what leads to the prohibited. Just as Imam al-Ghazali has elaborated, the perfection of sincerity is that you do not give notice to any praise or blame that emanates from people. SubhanAllah. I just want you to focus on that last line because we only have like 5 minutes. The perfection of sincerity is not focusing on any praise or any blame that emanates from people. That this is what ikhlas really is. Is that it is enough for me that God is watching me. Everyone else, everything else is secondary. Right? How do we get to that place, man?
It makes me think about it was a time, real long story short. I went from working in the community to driving Lyft. And it was a stark shift because I went from being around people and being appreciated to being in the car by myself, driving other people around, you know.
Right, sure.
And for me, it was a moment where I was just kind of like in embracing the difference of it and the challenge of it. I was just like, man, Allah is like my only real friend anyway.
Subhanallah.
You know.
That must have been a rough lift stint, baby. It must have been
But
rough in the car.
It was
man.
real.
You know, if
It
I'm
was
driving
real.
live, I said, Allah's my only friend. It's getting tough in here, man.
Tell me I'm lying.
No, it can
That's
get
real.
Like, it can get like that.
I mean, but wherever you realize it, you know what I mean? And I think for me, in that last statement, is if you can get to a place where you recognize, like, as you know, sometimes I get real whatever, esoteric or whatever it is, but like Allah is the only thing that's real anyway. In this room, you know what I'm saying? We think we smell stuff or feel stuff, whatever it is, we're looking at each other, but it's all like a means of getting to paradise or, you know, Jahannam, a'udhu billah. And it all goes back to Allah. So I think if you can get to that point, or even get to a place where you hold it true, even if you don't walk around with that constant, but you can at least revisit it and be like, you know what I'm tripping over. Like it all, you know what they say, like the essence of a person is what's left when nobody's looking. You know what I'm saying? Because Allah is never not looking. You know.
No, you know, man, they say that, you know, one of the issues that we struggle with is just maintaining that vertical gaze, man. Seeing Allah in everything.
Right.
You know, and not getting fixated on anything in creation so that you don't see that it's really Allah, right? Any praise, any blame, any esteem, any trial, any tribulation, any enjoyment, any triumph, any victory, it's all from Allah. It's all from Allah. And inasmuch as it was given to me by my Lord, I believe that there's some test, and if I pass the test, there's benefit in it for me.
No.
You know, Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, he famously said, and I try to remember this. He said, there really is not a good and a bad in the way that we think about them. If you encounter a situation and that situation results in you being closer to Allah, it's good. It's good.
Albeit difficult.
Albeit difficult. And if you encounter a situation and that situation results in you being removed from Allah, it's bad. Albeit an apparent blessing, a new job, a promotion, more money, a bigger house, a new relationship.
Enjoyable.
It's enjoyable. But it's something that has led to me forgetting Allah. It's not good. And a person can have an illness or experience a divorce or experience a loss of some kind, and they feel closer to Allah. Ultimately, it was something good for them, right? Making sure that you always see Allah in everything. Say, man, it's from God, man. It's from God. You know, once, and I'll say this and we'll close out, because the man with the microphone standing in the back, Muhammad in the Arabic language means worthy of praise, or means praised. So maf'ul, Muhammad, right? And the word Muhammad means worthy of blame. Arabic has a lot of those kind of things like that, where you just add a dot and it changes the meaning to the opposite. And the Arabic language is fascinating like that. So Muhammad, praiseworthy, Muhammad, blameworthy. So when the Prophet was in Medina, some of the Meccans, they started calling him Muhammad. You talking about Muhammad, that Muhammad out there, which is a regular, something that I've noticed. We have to be very careful. One of the ways that you dehumanize people and you justify their brutality is by giving them pejorative names, right? That's because you can dehumanize them in that. So we call them ops.
Right.
We don't want to call them by their names or people that got family members, just opposition. He's just an op, man.
It's an old Cap Williams joke. They say all these insurgents. He
Yeah,
said, these look like people.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Insurgents, right? Some Muslims mistakenly use the word kuffar in that way, right? These kuffar. Human beings, man. Al-insan. Aqad karamna bani Adam. Right? Yes, kufr refers to their state of disbelief, but kufr is not in any way something that is dehumanizing. They're still, these are God's servants. These are God's people.
No.
Right? So what was I talking about? Muhammad. That's what they started calling him. Muhammad. And some people in Mecca were getting real worked up. Like, man, I heard somebody call the Prophet Muhammad. You know, they were getting like, and the Prophet said, Subhanallah. Look at how Allah has spared me of their criticism. And they said, what? They're talking about some guy named Muhammad.
That ain't my name.
My name is Muhammad. They're talking about some guy named Muhammad. That's not even me. And he started laughing. This is how I want to be. He started laughing. Who was they talking about? Some guy named Muhammad. That's not even me, man. We should be rejoicing that my name isn't associated with their poison. They're talking about some other person. MashaAllah. To be able to see the good in somebody insulting you. That's the sunnah of the Prophet. So أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. And we can open there, inshallah.
Does anyone in the space have any questions? Just please raise your hand, inshallah. Please don't be shy. Bad questions are good questions.
Did you just say bad questions are good questions?
Yeah. Some people might, think they got a bad question, but it might be a good question.
You've been doing too much reading, man. Now some brothers just start speaking aphorisms. They just speak wisdom. Bad questions are good questions. وحسن السؤال نصف العلم. Asking a question is half of knowledge.
Anyone online have any questions? People on IG Live. We switch from, Facebook to IG.
Alhamdulillah. I don't know nothing about it. Right. Ali. Allah.
So can we think about blame as like a mechanism, a psychological mechanism, or something that elicits like a certain kind of emotional response, like fear or aversion towards something? So my question is, part two of the question is, do we so we transmute that blame? So blame is something good that you're supposed to have, and which could fall under, the realm of muraqabah, self vigilance, and self-restraint. So I feel like now it's going to turn to part three of the question. But so is the hawk involved with blame as well? So
Bismillah.
Thank you.
Think about, I think once we recognize our fundamentally flawed human nature, the Prophet ﷺ, Kulu bani Adam khatta'un wa khayr al-khatta'in at-tawwabun. All of the children of Adam, all women and men make mistakes. And the best of those that make mistakes are those that repent from the mistakes that they make. When you root that meaning firmly in your heart, it's much easier to deal with blame because there's no facade of perfection. You know, one of my friends used to tell me, when you find that there's a need to deflect blame and there's a need to be defensive, and I am the most defensive person that I know. Whenever I'm being criticized, I always become defensive. Always. But no, you're not looking at the good that I do. What about this though? I mean, wait a minute. Now give me some credit.
Bill break bill, me.
The reason for that is that there is some image of myself, I think, that I want to hold to. That maybe I want to see myself as fundamentally good. I want to see myself, there's something about accepting that blame that would entail a loss of something I want to believe about myself. And if I can, without anybody blaming me, dispense with false beliefs about myself. And then, and this is the most important thing, Ali, know that I don't need any false beliefs about myself to be worthy, to be adequate, to be loved by Allah, to be forgiven by Allah. I don't need to believe something fake about who I am to just be a struggling servant of God. In fact, that is the only thing God intends me to be. God doesn't intend me to be anything else. There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in which he said, well, Allah says, hadith Qudsi, if you were a people that did not make mistakes, I would replace you with the people who did make mistakes and then repented from their mistakes. That's all God wants me to be, is a penitent servant, someone that tries to do good, but recognizes that I don't always execute the way that I try. So if you're telling me what is actually true, I should just be saying, sadaqti, sadaqti. That's true. That's true. Now, for people who love us, for people that do community with us, once I acknowledge my wrong, and then I set my intention to do right, the question is, can you accept that? Or do you need me to be perfect in some way? Can you accept that? Yeah, I do have some flaws. I do make some mistakes. Can we still be brothers? There are things that sometimes I do and then I have to atone for and say, I'm sorry I said that. I'm still working on controlling my tongue so that I don't say things like that. But I want you to know that whatever you want me to do to atone for what I said, I'm willing to do. And I want you to know that my intention is to get to a place of controlling myself that I would never say something like that to you. Can you accept that? Do you believe that? Once we have those things in place, it becomes much easier to accept criticism. Because you know this person still loves me. This person still accepts me. This person is only pointing out to me something that maybe was a blind spot, was in a blind spot that maybe I couldn't see it. But now that they're telling me about it, and they don't intend to destroy my confidence, invalidate me, divest me of self-esteem. No, but also the messaging from their side has to reinforce that fraternity, that sorority, that brotherhood, that sisterhood, that friendship, that community. If you tell me, man, you're a worthless, dirty dog, it might be hard for me to say, you know what, you're right. I am. One time, man, this made me laugh because it really took the air out of the interview. Steven Seagal, even mentioning his name, I'm giving away my age. Steven Seagal had to be one of the funniest action actors of the 1990s. Whenever Steven Seagal acted in a role, his ponytail was his co-star. Steven Seagal would just be talking in dialogue, shaking his ponytail. What we gonna do here? You know what I'm saying? And some people said Steven Seagal is not a real martial artist. He's a joke. And so he was being interviewed, and he said, "What do you say to people who say you're not a real martial artist? You're a joke. They laugh when they see you. You're often caricatured. You know, Saturday Night Live, they done funny. Chris Farley did funny sketches about you." Steven Seagal said, "You know," Steven Seagal dropped it, man. He said, "You know, when I walk into a room, people see all kinds of things." He said, "Some people see a dog, some people see a rat, some people see a monkey, and some people see a human being just trying his best to be a human being. I'm not really concerned with what they see." And the interviewer was like, "Okay," you know, it's like, you know, he expected Steven Seagal to become defensive. "No, I did study martial arts, and these were my teachers, and this is who I am," because that would have made for better TV.
Right.
When he said from the chapter, "Hey, people see all kinds of stuff, man. I don't have any power over what they see. I'm not even that concerned with what they see." I saw the interviewer deflated. Let's talk about because what can you say to that?
That was the hottest question, the one where I'm thinking you're
gonna blow up
get in your feelings, right?
Getting your feelings, and I am a real martial artist. Man, look, I don't know what they say about me. It's okay.
Obviously, our brother, our teacher, Osama passed away recently. May Allah have mercy on him and accept his return and make it easier for his family. I think about something he used to teach or tell us: is it better to say I'm the best or to say I'm the worst? And I said, neither, just say Allah.
Allahu Akbar. Yeah. I learned that from Sidi Usama too, man.
Amen.
You know, you don't have to make a show out of even your self-deprecation. You don't have to make a show, I'm the worst person. I mean, some people, man, they just tell you their whole business, man. It's like, mashallah, man, you're a good brother. Drank a fifth of gin yesterday, man. I didn't need to know that. I'm terrible, man. You know, I don't even make it.
Like that's righteous.
Like as though, and sometimes some people wrongly believe that this is righteousness. Telling people, "Oh man, I'm the worst Muslim. I don't even pray all the time. Like, I mean, I'm terrible, man." No. That is almost as bad as saying I'm the best Muslim. I make tahajjud every night. I read a hizb of the Quran every day. I just say, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah for whatever I am. Alhamdulillah for what I'm striving to be. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just say alhamdulillah. 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 You know, the Prophet alayhi wasallam, he said about Sayyidina Abu Bakr, two things, man, that these things haunt me. He said that Sayyidina Abu Bakr, he said, Abu Bakr, huwa laysa bi a'lamikum. He's not the most knowledgeable of you. Wa laysa bi aqra'ikum. And he's not the most versed in the Quran of you. وَلَكِنْ هُوَ خَيْرُكُمْ, but he's the best of you, right? And when he said this, the Sahaba were surprised because they had learned to esteem knowledge. And he was saying, Abu Bakr does not know the most about the Quran. He doesn't know the most Quran among you. And he doesn't know, that's what I'm saying. And he doesn't know the most about Islam among you. وَلَكِنَّهُ شَيْءٌ فِي صَدْرِي. The thing that he has is just something in his heart. There's just something in his heart that makes him him. It's not what he knows. It's just something that he has. And Imam Ghazali said that in your pursuit of knowledge, If you are seeking something other than what Abu Bakr had, you're deluded, you're misleading yourself, because that's the only thing to be sought, right? The second thing the Prophet said about Sayyidina Abu Bakr, he said, if his iman was placed on one side of the scale and the iman of the rest of the ummah was placed on the other side of the scale, his iman would outweigh that of the entire ummah. And somebody asked him, yeah, Abu Bakr, what did you do? How did you become that way? And he said, man, I don't know that I'm anyway. But two things that I try to remember. If somebody praises me, I say, oh Allah, don't take me to account for what they say and make me better than what they say. And he says, I know myself better than they know me, and you know me better than I know myself. And then he said, إِذَا خُيِّرْتُ بَيْنَ الْأَمْرَيْنِ وَأَحَدُهُمَا يُفِيدُنِي فِي الْآخِرَةِ وَالْآخِرَةُ يُفِيدُنِي فِي الدُّنْيَا أَخْتَرَتُ الْآخِرَةِ. If I was given the choice of two things, and one of them benefited me in the life of this world, and the other benefited me in the next world, I always chose the one that benefited me in the next world. And it was just that made Abu Bakr who he was. That was the thing in his heart. But what we see, circling back to the chapter, both of those things, it's about Allah. It's not about the people, man. It's not about my rep. It's about Allah. It's about Allah.
We have two questions online that I want to be very, inshallah. One questioner says, how should we understand our essence? If that is what is left when no one is around, how do we determine who we are? If when we are alone, when struggling with sorrow, depression, uncertainty, lack of spiritual fortitude, how do we discover what is true? Because I don't want to believe that I am those things in my essence.
Ask that one more time. Huh?
How do we, how should we understand our essence? If that is what is left when no one is around, how do we determine who we are when we are alone? We struggle with sorrow, depression, uncertainty, lack of spiritual fortitude. How do we discover what is true? Because I don't want to believe that I am those things in my essence.
Jamali said it, so Jamali got an answer. Alhamdulillah. I think the question is saying, if my essence is what is left when no one else is around, but for me, the questioner, that's sorrow, that's depression, that's spiritual uncertainty and brokenness, etc. That's what's left for me when nobody else is around. Is that then my essence? See, some of these questions push you on the wall. Huh? Bismillah.
Bismillah. You know, it's interesting to get this question right now, because I think one of the things about COVID is maybe not discussed. I'm not, like I said, recently recovered. One of the things that's discussed is like an emotional toll that it takes, you know, and in dealing with like some of that sadness or depression. I think I was really pushed, not in a, I don't want to say it in a spiritual bypass type of way, you know, because everything we know goes back to Allah, but in a real way of like, if it's one thing that I know is true, it is Allah. So even in this time of difficulty, kind of the point that was raised earlier is that if there's some kind of good that can come from it, you know, then it was ultimately good, even though it was difficult to go through. But I think I don't know, not to be repetitive, but for me, it all just comes back to a point of reference. You know what I mean? Because this life is all it's up and down all the time. You know what I mean? It's a roller coaster ride. I think they say the human being experiences 70 different emotions a day. You know what I mean? So, and it's funny because sometimes we'll boil it down to It was a good day, it was a bad day. But
So
on
much- so
any
much
one of
more.
them days, you had all of that in there, you know?
Absolutely.
And just Allah as a frame of reference, you know, try to get yourself to that. I think that's a tremendous gift to have and to attain to, and just to try to find some kind of way of just locking in on that, so you're not just out here just wavering, because you're gonna waver anyway. But if you have something to draw back to that you know is real, you know, like they say, reaching for straws, that ain't gonna get you nowhere. Like, you got to have something that's solid, and Allah.
Allahu Akbar. And I think understanding that you don't have to be happy all the time. Sometimes I'm not happy. Sometimes I'm melancholy. Sometimes I'm sad. Sometimes I'm contemplative. Sometimes I'm frustrated. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I'm depressed. And I think seeking, if those states are momentary and temporary, you go in and out of them, that's natural. If you get stuck in one of those states in an unhealthy way, they're seeking the relevant help, to get you back to that place of equilibrium.
But even in that, recognizing that it's still temporary. It may be longer than you like to have to experience.
Oh, tell me about it.
You know. No.
Allahu Akbar. We got one more and then we probably wrap up, inshallah.
When it comes to older generation family members who show very outward negative reactions to specific groups of people that don't fit their model of a Muslim, how can you encourage them to think more open?
Bismillah. The older you get, some people actually grow more open-minded as they get older, that they have an experience of the world that keeps confirming to them there's a lot about the world that they don't understand. There's a lot about the world that they haven't seen. There's a lot about the world that is new. However, I think it's much more common that as we get older, we grow less open to things that are new, things that are unprecedented. And sometimes, people have to be reminded that this is Allah's dunya. It is not limited in any way by what makes you comfortable or by what you're accustomed to. And to assume that what is moral, what is good, what is worthy, what is objectively beautiful is limited to your experience or your knowledge of those things is to elevate yourself in a way that is patently arrogant, right? And I would probably encourage such a person, respectfully, of course, deferring to them because of their age, to remember who they are in the scheme of this. You're the makhluk, you're not the khaliq. You're the creature, you're not the creator. And when encountering other Muslims who are different than you, spiritually, you would much rather err on the side of acceptance, love, and embrace. If I'm going to be wrong for saying this person is or isn't Muslim, I would much rather be wrong for saying they are Muslim than wrong for saying they aren't. If I'm taken to task for, you were just too inclusive. No, you were just too inclusive. Your arms were too broad. You loved people too indiscriminately. I think I could stand up and say guilty as charged. I just, I tried to maintain some principle, but wherever I could find any glimmer of acceptance and love and embrace and brotherhood and sisterhood, I searched for it. I tried to find it, right? Take me to task for that. Imam Ghazali, He said, love for your brothers and sisters means that if one of them says something, and there's 99 ways that that statement can be interpreted as a statement that confirms their disbelief, and there's one way that the statement could be consistent with their faith, you accept it in that one way. You understand what I'm saying? So when we read statements, and now everybody makes statements that have lots of shock value. I remember reading things from like Professor Amini Wudu, just to be precise, and reading thinking, wow, I would never say something like that. But to say something about her iman, no, I wouldn't dare. I don't know what she means by this. This is something that, you know, in terms of what I understand to be reverential, what I understand to be respectful, I probably wouldn't make a statement like this about saying to Ibrahim, right? But I'm going to give this person, this sister, the benefit of the doubt that I'm sure she means it in a way that's consistent with faith in Allah and His Messenger. And if I was wrong in saying that, I'm willing to be wrong in saying that. I'm willing to be wrong in saying that. Alhamdulillah. We wrap up. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim wal Asr. Inna al-insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Subhana rabbi rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.